All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is a mock professional development session about writing objective test items. I have a pleasure. We're working with Wendy Eder and Eric Robinson, and my name is Leah Spears. The name of this project is To the Resources Group Assessment Plan, EFD 620 Measurement and Evaluation in Education. We attend Jackson State University. Dr. Stacy Gill is our professor, and we are taking this course summer 2024. Our agenda today. First, we'll start with a group assessment activity. Then we will discuss different types of test items. Next, we will discuss the 4 types of objective test items. Then we will go over the overall guidelines. Then we will have another activity, which is the written items activity. And last, we'll have the summary. All right. So first, like you stated, that we will have an activity due to timing. We won't actually perform this activity, but I'll go over what it will look like. So evaluating example test items activity. First, we will divide up into groups of 5 to 6 teachers in a group. Then we would pass out sample assessments to the teachers. Then we would allow them to analyze the examples and find out why some were poorly written and why some were good and effective. And then we'll allow them to, each group to share out their findings. All right, writing effective assessments. The Howell defines assessments in 2 categories, which are objective and subjective. But we will be focusing on objective type of assessments today, which are multiple choice, true and false, matching, and completion. Now I will pass it over to Wendy to describe each type of objective test item.
Hey, good afternoon. We're going to start off with what seems to be the most basic, true or false. It can also be one of the trickiest to write as well. True or false are absolute. It's either true or false. And to give it a little more depth of knowledge, if the students choose false, you could write it so that they have to explain why it's false. So looking at this is one of the examples we did in the pre-activity. This is a poor example. High IQ children always get high grades in school. The word always is an absolute word, and you want to avoid those when you're going true false, because that also can be an opinion word. And if you don't have the data to back it up, it could be argued. So it may not be an absolute true or false. However, number 6 was a good example. Of the objective items, true false items are the least time consuming to construct. It means they're the easiest for the test writer to write and be able to prepare. Next, we talk about matching. Matching is going to be in 2 columns. Your first column needs to be numbered. Your second column needs to have letters A, B, C, D, E, F, so on. The first example that we have here, which was the example you looked at in the pre-activity again, is not a good example because several of the matches can be arguable. Also, we have a mixture of topics. We have presidents and inventors and civil rights leaders all within the same set of matching. So for the test taker, they could use that to their advantage to help them eliminate and guess, even if they don't know for sure which one it is, or it could be confusing as to which Ford or what Bell they're talking about because there's not first names. If you look at the second example, that's a better example of writing matching questions. We put the long explanation in the number. We have a line out to the side so that the test taker can write the letter beside the line. In the first one, you don't know if you're supposed to draw a line, write the letter or what. And we've reduced it down to only testing knowledge about presidents at this point. One thing you will notice is there are more options to choose from than there are questions. And this makes sure that the test taker really knows what they're identifying instead of eliminating choices just to guess. Next, we have multiple choice. Multiple choice is going to come in two facets. It's probably the most widely used version of objective test assessments because there is a definite right answer. But when you're writing, you have to be careful to make sure that you do write a best answer or a definite correct answer. If you have more than one answer that could be defensible, that could lessen the quality and validity of your test. So let's look at some examples from our pre-activity. The first one is a poor example. U.S. grant was well, first of all, look at the word "and." That is a grammatical hint as to what the answer is. So "and" goes before a vowel, and the only vowel in their options is alcoholic. Well, my thought would have first been president, but at any point in time, U.S. grant could have been described as a president, man, alcoholic, or general. But that grammatical clue leads to alcoholic. But again, any of these answers are defensible. He could have been any of those. So that is not a quality question. Right below it is a good question. It says, in what year did humans first set foot on the moon? And so it specifies who, when, and where. And that's defensible with these four options here. One other thing you could do to make this better, the answer choices on number 2, is you could put the answer choices in order oldest to newest in numerical order instead of them being switched up. But overall, that is a pretty good question. If you click on the link here, you can go to Iowa State's link, Iowa State University. They have a great website that you could bookmark about writing multiple choice questions and evaluating strong quality test items. Next, we want to talk about the other type of multiple choice questions. Both of these are good examples, but they're different types of examples. The first one is multiple choice like you'd see on the Miller analogy test if you have someone that's taking that to get into graduate school, or you could use it in a class as needed. You have analogies to demonstrate relationships. So that leads to the Bloom's taxonomy of analysis a little bit higher. And then this one over here has pictorial or tabular stimuli. It's asking you different questions about the shapes. So you have to look at the application level of Bloom's taxonomy to have higher levels of learning identified. Then finally, we have the close or fill in or completion or short answer. They're all the same thing, just by different names. And this is your basic fill in the blank. Now, the spaces here are, of course, what you saw when we did our pre-activity for you to identify if it was a good item. So that wouldn't be on the regular test. And the blanks are filled in just for your sake of analyzing these questions. But let's look at an example of a poor example. This one, number 1, is poor because it has 2 blanks. Anytime you have 2 blanks, that can make it a harder question for the test taker. One problem with test taking is there are a lot of people who have test anxiety, and they may have studied, they may have the knowledge, but when they see 2 blanks, they're unsure of which direction to go first, and that can be confusing. A good example is going to be number 4. And again, this is similar to the multiple choice one we saw. It directs them to a definite defensible answer. In what year did William J. Clinton become president of the United States? That was the year he was elected, and that was 1992. Very specific on who it is, when it is, and what he became. Some of these other questions, like look at number 6. Blank was the first American to blank. That could be an infinite amount of answers. So that one obviously was not a good fill in the blank answer. Another thing you want to make sure that you're not doing is you want to make sure that you are not just copying and pasting from the text because you want your students to know the information that you're trying to get them to learn to assess to see if they've learned. All right, next I'm going to pass it over to Eric, and he's going to wrap us up with our closing activity.
Thank you, Wendy. Hello, everyone. Next, we will go over our ending activity, but for time purposes, I will just go over it. So first, we will start off by assigning each group um, a different topic. Those groups will create 2 to 3 objective test items. After that, we'll peer review them, and the groups will exchange test items and provide feedback using the rubric provided. And based on that feedback, we'll have a time to revise those groups and those test items. Here is an example, is our rubric, and it kind of gives us our guidelines for writing effective objective test items. As you can see, we create categories 1 through 8. 1 being items matched to attend outcomes. 2, the content related, clarity, independence, the answer, the grammar, context, clarity, and also the depth of the knowledge. And we went on a scale from 1 to 4, where 4 was exemplary and 1 being poor. And kind of just give us a summary about everything we've talked about today. Um, Talk about choice of item format is kind of determined by the instructional objectives. They want to go hand in hand to provide the best choice of item format for the person taking it. We talk about true and false items are quick to create, but also highly susceptible to guessing. Um, with it being a 50-50 chance, that'd be very highly far as guessing and trying to stop that. We also talked about matching items being simple to formulate, but also suffering unclear and vague instructions, as Wendy talked about earlier. Multiple choice items are the hardest type of objectives to design, but also so a lot of times, but there are multiple different types that we can come and create. And we talked about the completion items are easy to create and also less subject to guessing. In creating these test items, we want to prevent gender, cultural, and racial bias in test items by refraining from stereotypes and also making sure we have gender representation and also ethnic group representation equally.
All right, thank you. Those are our references. And Ms. Spears, would you like to close this out?
All righty. So this was our professional development mock of overall of objective test items. I hope you all learned a lot. And if you have any more questions, you can ask us at the end of the presentation. Thank you.